Here we go.
From a galaxy not so far away, it is the return of the Confirmed Epic Podcast, the official podcast of the epicreview.com. We are here back for 2015. I, of course, am the real Brad Bell, and joining me today, as always, is
Jerry Reed, also known as Barbecue 17.
And also joining me today, as usual,
Andrew Stokes, also known as Andrew Stokes.
So we're back in the saddle. We're ready to get going again. So we're going to start things off with Jerry kind of giving an explanation of a new project he's got in the works for 2015. So, Jerry, tell us about your new project.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, since mostly everything I did was action figure reviews on the Epic Review, I kind of branched out and started my own site called Action Figure Barbecue. And so it's another blogspot page that I've started. Like I said, it's kind of a, cousin or sister site or spin-off of the Epic Review, but it's just my own thing. Lots of action figure reviews on there. They're all archived. I've been having a lot of fun with it, just doing some different review formats and things.
Jerry wanted a more personalized blog, something to have his own canvas to paint his toy reviews on.
That's a really descriptive wording, and I like that.
Yeah, because
Brad.
the Epic Review was originally intended, I don't know if it was to be a news-breaking site, but definitely something where we kept constant reviews where we talk about collecting, comics, movies, sometimes video games, and we all got busy. As I posted this week, I got married this year, got a house this year. And
I've been busy ever since I wrote that one article.
Well, even Andrew has started, at a new college here recently, and we all know that Jerry had a child not too long ago. So we kind of had to take a step back, and I hope that the focus moving forward is not the pressure to be some news breaking site, because we'll never be that. But to give you, kind of the fans' perspective, kind of a more personalized perspective of how these things make us feel. And I posted, when I came back, an epic return, that article, and saying why I've been away. I love to love things. All right, whether it be movies, comics, football, whatever. And what surrounds you loving these things is the conversation and dialogue you have with your friends about it, which we all are people in the fan community, whether that be Star Wars, Doctor Who, whatever. So I hope this becomes more of an open forum and a place for us just to love things, So
kind of one of the reasons I went with my, want to do my own blog as well was, one of the best things, I enjoy writing the blogs. It really helps me enjoy my action figure collecting more, think about my toys, like taking the pictures. I like cataloging them. But I really like it when people comment, too. And so, I've got a lot of great, commenters and other blogs I follow and folks that stop by and comment on, my stuff. And so, once again, if you're reading any blog, whether it's us, whether it's another blog, just try to comment on it, because that really lets not only does it continue the conversation, make things more fun, but it really gives the writer, just lets them know someone appreciates what they do. And, there's a lot of great free content on the internet, and just a good way to let people know that you appreciate them and keep us inspired.
Because most blogs on the internet are not money-making blogs.
Yeah.
You may get a few dollars here and there, but most of all of us bloggers, not all of us, but I'd say about half the blogs you see on the internet, we have other jobs. They have other jobs. I'm a teacher.
I'd say most of them do.
You're a minister. Andrew's in security. We have all different things that keep our lives busy. So this is just a forum to come to just discuss our hobbies and the things we love.
Just to clarify, I'm not insecure. I just work in the security field.
He's in security. Okay, yeah, that's true. Good clarification there. So we're going to go ahead and get right into
Interest
it.
in security, yeah.
It takes up so much time I can't blog. I'm insecure about it.
He's insecure. Every time he opens the computer, he looks at it down in shame and eats a bag of Fritos.
My first article accidentally wrote tittles instead of titles. And ever since then,
it was all downhill from there. So let's go ahead and get into what we've been checking out.
Check checklist? Check. Double check checking of checklist? Check.
So, Andrew Stokes, what have you been checking out recently?
I've been watching the Netflix original series Marco Polo.
Oh, I've been wanting to watch it.
See, you heard about it at least. I told Brad about this. He had no idea what I was talking about.
I've been under kind of a blanket of Panthers football. Carolina Panthers have been eliminated, and so I'm back to life now.
There's 6 other days in the week. So
I know, but it consumes my whole week during football season.
I talk about it too, don't get me wrong, but I mean, I still need
a respite. Yeah, usually from depression being a Panthers fan, but we've been pretty good the past few years. But Marco Polo, you described this to me as what, the Asian Game of Thrones kind of?
Almost like Rome.
It's kind of what I've heard.
Mixed with Game of Thrones with an Asian influence almost. Yeah.
What time period does this take place in?
Yeah, and ancient Asia.
Is it the Mongolian time period?
It's like right after, it's like maybe a little bit after Genghis Khan. I think Genghis Khan is the guy's grandfather.
That's a good restaurant they have in Charlotte, that Genghis Khan restaurant. It's called the Genghis Grill.
Yeah,
it's very good.
You put your stuff on the plate. You said you didn't like Chinese food earlier today.
That's not Chinese food, is
What
it?
is Genghis Grill?
Mongolian.
Mongolian? You like Mongolian, though?
Yeah. There's a difference, okay?
They have Mandarin chicken.
The difference was my wife wanted to eat there, so I had to go there.
Oh, this is actually all right.
Wait a minute, this Mandarin chicken is actually,
Mandarin duck.
Yeah, it's actually British food. You don't know it.
All right, tell us more about Marco Polo.
So I mean, it takes place around the time of Marco Polo existing. So if you know when he's around, it's around that time. I mean, it's about Marco Polo's kind of adventure in this time in China where, like, the Mongolians are kind of like this big force, but there's still, like, these ancient, old Chinese civilizations there and the old empire and stuff.
The dragons with big whiskers play a part in it.
Only when they get high in some of those drug scenes, and yes.
I'm not really though. I'm not interested.
There is some drug usage, but
probably opium. A lot of opium.
I don't know if it was opium.
Okay.
What's the rating? Is it like MA, like Game of Thrones?
I think
it's definitely.
It's whatever.
There's definitely a bunch of nudity. Lot of.
It's whatever Netflix's mature
is a lot of the fight scenes. There's a lot of, like, karate or whatever the actual term is, because I don't know.
Kung fu, Andrew, get it right.
I'm not sure. I guess some of it is kung fu. But I think they have like an older. They don't use the word kung fu. They use a word a couple times that sounds kind of like kung fu, so it sounds like some ancient version of kung fu, like tung fu or something. I don't know. But I mean,
Taekwondo.
I was geocaching, and I'm pulling a button out. I found this button in a geocache yesterday. It's like a very offensive. It's a button with like a very offensive portrait of like an
ancient Asian
person with like a big Fu Manchu. Kind of looks like Lo Peng from Big Trouble in Little China.
Is this offensive?
I don't know.
I mean, it looks
we'll
like
have to post a picture.
If I drew that somewhere, and if I drew it somewhere,
if you drew this as a character who existed in 2015, it might be offensive.
Sure. I mean, he looks like a comic book villain from like the 1940s.
Yeah.
So,
but there's a lot of fight scenes are like really cool. There's like this blind monk who's a really cool character, and I don't know. It's just interesting. It's. I don't think it's as good as Rome. If you've seen that, I don't watch Game of Thrones. But as far as the books go, I don't think the plot is quite as intricate. But I mean, I think if you like those type of shows, I think you'll definitely enjoy it.
Is it 10 episodes?
I think it's about 10 episodes. It's all about an hour each. It's kind of like HBO runtime. They're all about an hour.
Does it seem like it's a series that's going to continue?
Oh, definitely. Okay. Yeah.
Every time they say Marco's name, does somebody yell, Polo?
No. They typically call him the Latin. They don't even call him Marco often.
Aladdin?
The Latin. Which sounds Latin. It sounds like they say Aladdin a lot, but they're saying the Latin.
And and a few kids turned it on and they realized it wasn't the Disney Aladdin adaptation they were looking for.
They should have gone
it's called Marco Polo.
The very beginning was kind of, if you're a kid, boring. I thought it was interesting, but like there's not a lot of action, and so it's a lot of setup, so it's probably boring for kids, luckily.
Luckily.
Well, I mean, kids shouldn't be watching. It's very violent. There's a lot of sex.
But as somebody who watched a lot of stuff I shouldn't have watched, I was allowed to watch Tales from the Crypt when I was like 4 years old.
Oh my gosh!
So I turned out okay. That's disputable, I guess.
We just watched Terminator with my nephew last night.
Which one? Terminator 1 or
the first one? Where he fell asleep like 5 minutes in. Before he didn't even realize Arnold Schwarzenegger was a robot by the time he fell asleep. And I loved it how he didn't know he was a robot because he kept saying like like when he's like hot wiring the car, he's like, oh, that hurt his fingernails and like all this kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, he doesn't know. He's gonna be in for such a surprise.
That's funny.
Yeah, but then he fell asleep. We rented it off Amazon specifically so he could watch it, and he fell asleep like 5-10 minutes into it. It was still a great movie. I forgot. I mean,
you forget how good the first one is because the second one's so good.
Well, it's not even that. It's just like I forget how good it is, and I watched the first one, and then I'm like, that was great. I'm like, and the second one's even better. You know what I mean? Like, that's how good the second one is. It's even better than this.
And the third one is, you know,
all right, calm down.
Pretty forgettable.
The third one is it's decent. I would say I gave it a good. The third one.
Yeah.
How old were you when that came out?
I was a junior in high school when it came out.
I was in college, so
yeah, I know. I've seen it once. I don't really remember it that well. So
the female Terminator was pretty badass.
She made her boobs bigger in that one scene.
She did. That's true. Speaking of very offensive,
she like energy based, right? She was an energy based Terminator. Yeah.
You got to admit the part where they go to Sarah Connor's grave and it's nothing but guns is pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. He has the big coffin.
Yeah, and he's just blasting smoke.
There's some good scenes in that.
What do you think? What do you think of the new one that's going to come out?
Genesis.
I watched that trailer and it's got Arnold, so I'm interested.
Yeah.
If it was like a direct continuation of Salvation, count me out because Sam Worthington to me is like the most overrated.
Oh, I get what you're saying.
I liked Salvation. It wasn't as good as I hoped it could have been, but.
Yeah, you're telling me we're getting a Terminator movie with Christian Bale with Salvation, and I was so pumped.
Yeah.
And it ended up being, again, about the third one. Like, I thought it was good.
Yeah, I just could have done more with it.
I remember when Salvation first came out, and this guy from work at the time, he was like, I can't wait to see this movie. He goes, in all these movies, they talk about this war between humans and the machines, and then they give us this other crap. This is what people really want to see. And I'm like, is it what people really want to see? Like, the first two Terminators are really good. Like, that was backstory, and it's cool, but maybe a little bit is, we just needed a little bit of those flashback scenes or something. Maybe we don't need to see the whole scene. It's just robots fighting humans. Cool action scenes, but is there a story there? I think the story was in the past, in the time.
I would be excited if James Cameron was directing it.
Oh, man.
Now, that would get me excited. Of course, that's not likely now. He's so tied up in the Avatar sequels.
They've just pushed that back.
He's just delayed everything with Avatar.
Yeah, delayed it.
To 2017. So I watched that preview when it first came out, and I was just thinking about how much more convoluted the Terminator timeline was going to be. It seems like it contradicts the first one. And
the third one contradicts the entire point of the series. Like in the third one, the machines say you can't change the future, and it's like, what the hell are you doing? Why are you sending robots back in time to try to change the future?
That's the most convoluted time travel timeline of any
it starts off
franchise.
It starts off pretty tight, especially the first one.
Yeah, of a mainstream franchise, it's pretty.
Yeah, but like the first one starts off and it's all a loop and it's all tight.
Yes,
and the second one already kind of it's like, wait a minute, like. The first one is the robots are trying to change the timeline, but we kind of learn that you can't because Kyle Reese is actually John's father. And it's all kind of a loop. But then when the second one comes around, it's like, oh, the loop's changing. You can change the timeline. But in the third one, you realize, no, you can't. I don't know. It's a thing.
Well, let's move on from Terminator Genesis and Marco Polo to...
Have either one of you been checking out the Amazon pilots?
No, I have not. These pilot episodes, has any of them been decent?
I've seen two. One was, I don't know, there's one called Point of Honor, which takes place in Lynchburg, Virginia. It's this family, they own a big plantation, a bunch of slaves, and it's right at the outset of the Civil War. And they basically decide to free all their slaves, yet they still love Virginia, so they join the Confederate Army. And it's kind of like this pretty large family dealing with all that stuff. I'd like to see it continue because it's interesting. But
how many episodes is it?
Each one is only one episode. There's only one episode of each of these.
And they're just gauging interest to see if they're going to continue these?
Yeah, but like this one, I don't know. Some of the dialogue was kind of wonky. Some of the, I don't know. I'm not big into how Southern women used to dress back in the day, but some of those, as people who live in the South, some of the costumes that the daughters were wearing, parents today would not let their daughters wear that. You know what I mean? I can't imagine back in those days when at least in my mind, it's a lot more conservative and that kind of stuff. But
so they own slaves?
They own slaves. Yeah, they have a huge plantation. They own families of slaves, and they look like. I hate to, but there was the people who basically mistreat slaves, and there were people who own slaves and seem to just treat them as workers almost. You know what I mean? They kind of seem like the people who treat them as workers. The slaves all.
So they're a very wealthy family.
They're very wealthy family. I also watched one that I think is worth noting, The Man in the High Castle, which is based off the book The Man in the High Castle. I don't know if either one of you are familiar with it.
Not familiar with it.
It takes place in the 1960s America, but it takes place in America if we had lost World War II. So like the eastern half of the United States is German owned, the western half is Japanese owned, and it's like I said, it's in the 60s now, and Germany and Japan are in a Cold War with one another.
Wow,
and
that sounds very. I want to watch this one.
You should. It's very interesting.
Repeat the name of that one again.
The Man in the High Castle.
The Man in the High Castle.
It's just. And then, like, you know, you follow these American citizens from, like, different kind of parts of this future America, this alternate reality America, and you just kind of see them dealing with it. And you hear, you know, and they put you into it. They don't explain anything, really. They put you into it, and you just hear people talk about, like, the fight of Virginia Beach, or, like, this or that. You know what I mean? Like, they don't... like, some of the things... They're just cool alternate history things. Like, Hitler's still alive, but he's, like, an old man now.
Are they an hour long or 30 minutes?
This is an hour long. This is, like, an hour and a minute long or something.
Wow. Okay.
Some of them are short. Some of them are, like...
Commercial-free?
Stuff. Yeah, commercial-free. This one was really cool. I'm interested to see where it goes. There were a few kind of clunky dialogue parts, but I'm really... If it doesn't go anywhere, I'm going to read the book now, because there seems like there's more going on than what you even... Like, that already sounds like there's a lot going on, but it seems like there's even more going on than what it really appears.
When you watch these, you just hook your computer up to the TV?
I use my Amazon app through my Xbox One.
So there's an Amazon app on Xbox and PlayStation, most major outlets. Okay.
Prime members can just stream it, but if you're not a Prime member, you can still, I believe, download them for free. So you don't have to be a Prime member to watch these pilots.
All right, Jerry Reed, what have you been checking out this week?
Oh, what have I been checking out this past week? Well, I'll compliment myself, pat myself on the back here. So I was geocaching this past weekend with my family, and we found 28 geocaches in one day. Which
this is 10 hours of geocaching, by the way.
At least.
Explain what geocaching is, because believe it or not, a lot of people do not know.
So
I believe it.
Geocaches are hidden containers. They're containers people hide. They can be as large as like an ammo box or a suitcase, or even larger. They can be as small as like a little magnetic, tube that's about the size of the head of an eraser or something. And people hide them, and then they use a handheld GPS receiver to mark where they're at. And then there's a website, geocaching.com, where they list the coordinates, and you use your GPS to find them and sign the little log that's hidden inside. And it's really fun. There's like a trading things involved. I found some Batman Returns trading cards in a geocache.
Without gum.
Without gum in them. Yeah, the Batman Returns ones didn't have gum. The original Batman ones did, but the Batman Returns cards had no gum in them. So I found a set of those yesterday and traded some stuff for it. But we found 28 in one day, which was a new record for us, and it was it was kind of a challenge of getting 24 caches in 24 hours. We beat it, so it was really fun. But one of the things I've been checking out was a Kickstarter project that I had, kickstarted, supported back earlier in 2014 called Legends of Cthulhu.
I remember this.
Yeah, by Warpo Toys. And, once again, it's one of those retro action figure lines, kind of like the old Kenner Star Wars, or, some of the Mattel Clash of the Titans.
A lot like Funko's doing.
Yeah, like what Funko's doing, or what Biff Bang Pow has done with their Twilight Zone line. So anyways, these are based called Legends of Cthulhu, and it's kind of a H.P. Lovecraft theme. Like if H.P. Lovecraft... his work had a toy line or a cartoon series, in the late 70s, early 80s. And so just really nice. I mean, they come on beautiful cards. A couple of my cards were bent, but I saved the card, but I'm not a mint on card collector. Just
shame on you.
Yeah, I do, though, with these retro lines. You can see I cut the side so I can slip the figure in and out because they look so cool in the package for storing them. But they're really nice. They're very well painted. They're well designed. You've got a Cthulhu spawn, so he kind of looks like a Cthulhu, but he's smaller with wings.
There's a lot of detail in these to be such small figures. Like, this is way better than anything when they were releasing the Star Wars in the 90s, the Power of the Force line, the orange and the greenbacks. This looks like they actually put time into these characters.
They're really nice, but then they look like the era they're supposed to come from, too. The late 70s, early 80s. The art on the back is gorgeous. I mean, you can just kind of... It's really funny to see the craziness of, Lovecraft's kind of inspired characters as if they were like a cartoon. I mean, you got this professor carrying a Cthulhu idol, fighting like these cultists and stuff. So I love them. I've really been on this kick with all of the retro action figures and stuff, especially all the horror themed ones. And I've got them like all together as like, all the Funko like horror movie ones. So all the Universal monsters, Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, my Cthulhu Spawn, Alien and Predator, the Twilight Zone, kind of all those guys are hanging out as like my council of monsters that's overseen by Emperor Palpatine. And then for the good guys, I've got like Snake Plissken, Luke Skywalker, Han and Chewbacca, the Rocketeer,
Is Gandalf over them?
I don't have a Gandalf figure, but I wish he were. Yeah, not in this style. So I'd have to get the old Knickerbocker one from the.
Is anybody over the good guys, or they're just working together?
Jerry is.
They're kind of a mixed council right now. I'm not really sure who the leader of the good guys is going to be yet. Like
one will emerge. Don't worry.
Yeah, I've kind of been looking at it. I was considering making. I was considering making it Luke Skywalker, but I don't have a vintage Obi-Wan figure yet, so maybe I will make it Obi-Wan Kenobi. But the Crow is with the good guys.
Who do you like better, Luke or Han?
Oh my gosh, that's a tough question. Probably ultimately, Han Solo is a more compelling character in the film.
Sure.
Luke has more room to grow with expanded universe stuff.
I agree with that statement.
Luke's the hero.
Luke's the hero.
I understand, yeah.
But Han has, they both have growth, but in different ways.
All right, well, let's move on to what I've been checking out. One of the most hyped horror movies of 2014. One of the most hyped movies in general.
Ever?
It's called...
The History of Mankind?
Not The History of Mankind in general from last year.
More hyped than Snakes on a Plane?
Spider-Man 3?
No, never more hyped than Spider-Man 3. It's called The Babadook. Now, this is an Australian movie directed by Jennifer Kent. It premiered at Sundance last year. All the top 10 lists, podcasts, blogs I read and listen to last year had this, most of them in their top 5. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be extremely horrifying, even to a lot of people who are usually not creeped out by these type of films.
You said it's an Australian film?
Yes.
So it's basically just a home movie of life in Australia where everything's trying to kill you over there, and it's just terrifying as Americans.
No. Have you seen Crocodile Dundee? Australia's not terrifying to Americans.
I mean, they will put another shrimp on the Barbie for you.
Yeah, exactly. So this is based off a kid's book, not the film. There's a kid's book in the movie called The Babadook, and it's a pop-up book that gets pretty much
that like
possessed.
A Bob Moran?
What's a Baba Ran?
Baba Ran.
But what is that?
Oh, you know.
I think
Anybody know?
Isn't it actually saying Barbara Ann?
Yeah, I think it's,
Maybe.
I don't know. I thought
But
it was
the
a Barbara Ann.
Babadook, who...
That makes me think of Surf Ninjas.
Oh, yeah. Good movie. Now...
Not really, but okay.
It's a good, bad movie.
It is a good, bad movie.
But this movie is so hype, and I wanted to be terrified. I expected something on Conjuring level, and I get into this movie, and by the end, I realize it's nothing more than a possession movie. That's it. Like
nothing more than.
Yeah, I mean, there's
scary. I like this movie.
Well, there's
Conjuring, the other one.
I get possessed.
Everything
every week.
was cliche, pretty much. You
Okay.
know, all the main possession thread lines that you would expect. Although there was no exorcism, like no priest. It didn't get to
Where'd you
that
see
point.
it? Did you see this at home? Or?
I ordered it on demand,
Okay.
direct TV.
That's why you weren't scared. You gotta go to the theater to watch these movies.
Yeah, that would have been better.
I'm more scared
in
watching
theater.
movies at home.
No, you watch them in the middle of the day.
Not always.
What movie did you watch? And you said it wasn't that scary, and you watched it in the middle
I
of
watched
the day.
Insidious in the evening. But
It was like the middle
it
of the
wasn't dark
day.
out. It was like 5 or 6 o'clock. It was
Yeah.
dark.
But the
I liked it. It
Babadook,
was a good movie. It's creepy.
basically, the character comes out of the book, and the character is a demon.
Okay.
And he's haunting this.
It's like a real action hero, kind of.
No. All right.
Last action hero.
Last action hero.
He's haunting this small child and the mother. And the mother has lost her husband. The husband actually...
Did she find him?
This ain't a major spoiler.
I don't want major spoilers because I want to see this movie.
It's not a
Bob
major
Moran,
spoiler, but the husband, it's revealed in the first 5 minutes of the movie. the husband died on the way to the hospital for her to deliver her child.
So it's his fault that his father's dead.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a terrible way of looking at it. The kid's a great actor. The mother who becomes possessed by the Babadook is
Now
a
I know
great
who's
actress. It's all revealed very early in the movie. I don't consider
I
these
can just skip
major
the first
spoilers.
15 minutes, apparently.
But what made me upset with this is the hype over the Babadook. I wasn't very afraid at all. A lot of things seemed cliche. I mean, the few moments that they showed him, I understand you got to use a character sparingly, not to oversaturate the terror that this guy presents. But he's very scary, but he's very underutilized. He
Good, right?
No, because
Did it leave you wanting more?
It made me want more of the Babadook, the character.
Sometimes I wonder with a movie, and I'm going off on a tangent here, but sometimes I wonder with a movie like this, like you said, there's so much hype that if you had just stumbled across this movie, you probably would have been like, theoretically, you might have been like, oh my gosh, this is great. I've never heard of it.
I
It's
agree
fantastic.
with that statement.
But when you hear everybody talk about it, I mean, it's just hard sometimes to live up to hype.
Yeah.
Because you said suddenly you're thinking like, oh, scariest movie, Exorcist, Conjuring.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ghoulies.
I heard a lot of people compare this to The Exorcist, which is blasphemy when it comes to horror films.
No pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended.
But douche.
Yeah, Babadook. Anyway, I had never. I don't think I've ever heard of this movie before. You're mentioning it right now, so I'm not hyped at all. So I should check it out.
Yeah, you should check it out. But they're actually selling the pop-up book that a lot of people are really clamoring for, because this movie does have a pretty big fan base.
Yeah.
That thing costs you about $80.
That's not as cool anymore.
No, that's very expensive. And every time he appears, he goes, Baba, doop, 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 doop. So that's pretty
80s
cool.
cartoon. What's that?
That's what it sounds like. I know, but I've been saying all week, ticking my wife off, Baba.
Oh, did she not like that noise?
Now, she ended up not liking it, but, she doesn't like horror movies, but she didn't think it was that scary. We definitely watched, more frightening stuff.
So what I can do to freak my wife out is Ju-On, which is the original film that The Grudge was based on.
Yeah.
That's a pretty weird movie. My wife did not watch it, but my father and I were watching it. I mean, it's probably back in like 04, early 05, and my wife had come in like at my parents' house to do something, and she heard there's this ghost of this woman with like her throat's been crushed. Yeah, she goes, and I do that. I'll act like my throat's sore, start clearing my throat, and she like freaks out.
Hates it.
Stop,
Awesome.
stop. Yeah, so she's listening to this podcast driving home from a trip tomorrow. So
Awesome.
I love you.
All right, let's move on from what we've been checking out into the epic news segment of the week. All right, guys, let's talk a little bit about Suicide Squad. So the cast was announced.
Shut up.
We've had Jared Leto as the Joker. We have Will Smith as Deadshot. We have Viola Davis as Amanda Waller. A bunch of big names. We had Tom Hardy announced as Rick Flag, one of the original members of Task Force X.
Yeah.
Or the Suicide Squad. I don't know the lady's name, but the hot blonde from Wall Street, Wolf of Wall Street, is Harley Quinn, which I think is good casting.
The hot blonde.
So
the main character hot blonde, or one of the background hot blondes?
the main character hot blonde. All right. So without sounding too misogynistic, let's move on. Let's talk about this week. Tom Hardy drops out. And as soon as Tom Hardy drops out, that is disappointing, because I was looking forward to seeing him in a DC movie where his face wouldn't be covered.
I will be taking another role.
And how awesome would it be if he was playing Bane in the Suicide Squad? Now, that would be
cool.
epic. But Jake Gyllenhaal is rumored to step in.
I like Jake Gyllenhaal. What character?
I would like
His name's Rick Flag. Jerry, you're more of a DC encyclopedia than us. Do you know Rick Flag? I don't know Rick Flag.
It's not someone who's real familiar to me.
Not me either.
I've heard the name.
How many times has he won the World Heavyweight Championship?
16 times. All right. I think the overall conversation about this is not Hardy dropping out and Jake Gyllenhaal filling in. It's the level of star power that DC is using to make this isn't Justice League, you know? I mean, Suicide Squad, I like the book. You really like the book.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty good.
But it's not like the flagship franchise for DC Comics. What do you think about this approach of all these megastars? Are they in this movie because the script is so good and they're excited about this? Or is this Warner Brothers' philosophy, let's fill our roles with big stars?
Yeah. My kind of thought on that, well, I mean, Will Smith on board, I think is interesting. It's an interesting choice for him. Sometimes he picks really odd roles. I mean, some stuff he picks, really strange stuff, and some things he passes up things that, you're kind of like, why did he pass that up?
Like Django.
Yeah.
Passed up Django.
And Matrix.
Really?
He passed up his Neo in the Matrix, I believe. But anyways, I'm not really sure. I really do get the impression, though, that this is DC Warner trying to capitalize on everything, Marvel has done, Marvel Studios has done. And, I mean, this is kind of their answer to Guardians of the Galaxy. These are kind of the anti-heroes. This is a chance to do something interesting. That movie,
we have Dave Bautista in Guardians, and we have Will Smith in Suicide Squad. It's a completely different approach.
Sure.
Chris Pratt's big. He's not as big, this is my opinion, as Jared Leto, who's won an Academy Award. Now, Jared Leto, I love that choice. I watched, what's the name of the movie?
Dallas Buyers Club.
Yes, Dallas Buyers Club. I cannot remember. One of my favorite movies from last year where he played a transvestite and he completely transformed himself. And I remember thinking, I hadn't seen somebody transform themselves like this since Heath Ledger did it for the Joker.
Prime.
And I was like, good pun. And I was like, this guy would make a great Joker.
What else
lo and behold, here he is.
He's in Fight Club.
Yeah, he's in Fight Club.
I've seen that.
He was in another movie very recently. I can't remember. I'll look it up here in a minute.
We talk a lot about movies. We don't really know that much about movies.
Well, Jared Leto.
Lady in the movie?
Jade Leno?
Is he the guy that Subway? Right?
No. What I'm afraid of is I think we're in the middle of kind of like what we were in the 90s with comic books.
Yeah.
I think we're in that with superhero movies. I think there's going to be a superhero movie, not superheroes in general, but a superhero movie bubble that's going to burst. I think that Avengers is going to end up like making bank, right? Age of Ultron, making over, $2 billion worldwide. And all of a sudden, Warner's and other studios, it's going to be a blank check. Yeah. And I think the studios may bankrupt themselves over these movies.
I think with like this kind of thing, and it's what DC's doing in general, when Marvel was doing their thing, I was just wondering, I was anticipating. I was like, can they pull this off? Because I want to see them pull it off.
Yeah.
With DC, it's like, can they pull this off? Because I don't really know exactly what they're doing. You know what I mean? I almost want to see what the plan is here.
There's 16 superhero movies coming out in the next 3 years, I believe.
Which, I mean, once again, it's another genre. I think we're seeing superhero, once again, a few years back, lots of fantasy movies.
Yeah.
I mean,
and there's still like these Twilight, Hunger Game, teen, the Maze Runner, and that kind of
young
stuff.
Adult sci-fi fantasy.
Yeah.
It almost has become like its own genre,
it's its own genre.
Right? Yeah, exactly. It really is.
DC is not doing anything to really establish. It feels like every movie they pitch, they're like, oh yeah, we're going in full speed. Instead of with Marvel, where hey, we're bringing in a character telling one story.
The stars, to me, do not sell the movie. It's the characters.
But I mean,
not that you don't need recognizable names.
I'm thinking about though the cast from Suicide Squad, and I mean, Will Smith is arguably the biggest star in the world. I've heard him called that many times, saying he is like the.
And he is going to be Deadshot, who is a big character, but it's not like he's playing, the Joker.
But they could build that character up, though. I mean, it's there's a lot of room there.
He's a good bad guy.
Most audiences don't have a lot of preconceived notions of Deadshot, so he has a blank slate to work with. I mean, Jared Leto is a good actor. I mean, he's well known. Is he A-list?
I think he is now.
A-list
in the mainstream way.
Everybody in
He's
Hollywood.
not,
I don't know if you
you
walk
know,
into Best Buy and ask somebody.
He's
who
not
Jared
Robert
Leto
Downey
is.
Jr.
No. But who was Robert? Did anybody know who Downey Jr. was before?
Well, I think
we
so, yeah.
did. We
Yeah.
did. But you go and ask like people our age. Maybe not our age, but maybe this like early college at the time before the first Avengers comes out, who Robert Downey Jr. is, and half of them couldn't tell you.
Well, for me though, I think like comparing it to Guardians of the Galaxy is like Guardians of the Galaxy had some of these big names, Bradley Cooper, Vin Diesel attached. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Chris Pratt, who's like kind of a rising star and stuff. But we also had these years of Marvel films. So some people could say, oh, it's a Marvel film. You know what I mean? Like, it looks good. It sounds weird, but it's a Marvel film, and they normally make good films. With like DC, it's like we don't really have anything necessarily to go off of yet. And a lot of people, I don't know. I mean, I know who some of these characters are. Obviously, like Joker and stuff. But it's like I don't know anything about Suicide Squad, and like the cast alone could make me more excited for this film because to me, DC doesn't have this established film, set yet. That makes me say, "Oh, it's a DC film." Okay, so the cast could definitely help.
Batman and Superman movies. I mean, that's pretty much DC at this point.
Yeah,
Well,
so I think the cast could really help a film because like they're so early right now in their they're trying to establish themselves in the movie sphere as well.
When Spielberg, I believe, when he was working on Indiana Jones 3, and George Lucas, of course, worked with him on those movies, that they sat down, and this is on record if you want to Google it or whatever.
I will fact check you.
And they predicted...
I will Google George Lucas.
They predicted that the blockbuster would be the death of most of the major studios. They said that they predicted that there will come a time period where the franchises will get so big that they'll bank all of their money on them, and that studios like Warner Brothers could collapse.
Think about the word we used for that big movie, a tentpole film.
Yes.
That tentpole goes down, and I mean everything collapses. You're right. There is no room right now. For the most part, in Hollywood, you either have independent, low budget movies, and you have blockbusters.
There's no in between.
There's not really an in between. So Suicide Squad can't just be like one good actor with passion for the project, or one well-known actor with passion for the project, and a couple smaller actors, and do a moderate return. It has to be a blockbuster.
Yeah,
I also think that's why like a lot of these tentpole movies are a lot safer than more independent films or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There's a lot. They're trying to hit as many people as possible, and that to some degree can lower the quality of them. But I mean, some of them are you can still reach a broad audience and still be fun. But I mean, I think that's it's not like they're taking too many risks, really. You know what I mean?
There's always been blockbusters. The term blockbuster came around when Jaws was released. That was known as the first blockbuster.
Yeah.
We're in the age of blockbusters. You look at the summer, you can count 10 to 12 blockbusters.
Yeah.
And that's not even talking winter. Like I would
Christmas, is now a blockbuster era.
Something Andrew and I were talking about this week. Spider-Man, the Mark Webb movies have made a lot of money. They've exceeded growth. They've made profits.
Right.
But with marketing and everything else, Sony bet so much on those movies that even though they did way more than break it even, they're seen as a failure.
Yeah, you got to look at. Sometimes it's called Hollywood accounting or creative accounting.
Yeah.
Look into it. You'll have movies that made multiple times their budget and are considered failures because of the odd way that things are calculated and things are done. And it's just interesting to look into. I think it's like Return of the Jedi is one of those movies that George Lucas has said the studio still tell him it was a failure and a flop, and yet.
Yeah.
It's Return of the Jedi. I mean, come on. So
I think they'll become a movie that will absolutely flop. And if I had to bet money, it wouldn't be a Marvel Studios movie, with their track record. Yeah. It's going to be Suicide Squad or one of these Batman movies.
Sony one.
And it may not be a bad movie.
Yeah.
It may be Sony.
Yeah.
Especially with all this went on there.
Yeah.
And it may not necessarily be a bad movie. but they'll pour so many eggs into a basket that it's gonna be a John Carter-like failure with a superhero film, and we'll see the end of these.
Have you seen
not superhero movies in general, just the saturation?
Well, we'll see about that. I don't know. I mean, audiences keep expanding.
I hope not. I love
it. All these overseas markets, it's like the audience is just getting bigger for some of these films. So, has anybody here seen John Carter?
I did.
I have not yet.
Was it good?
I did. It was good.
I wanted to see it.
I would give it a 3 out of 5.
I've known a lot of people. I really wish I need to watch it. I didn't miss it, but a lot of people I know that like the fantasy, barbarian fantasy, sci-fi fantasy, really enjoyed it. I think it was just
it had $266-something million budget and only made like $20 to $30 million.
It's just things from like the name of the movie, like John Carter. You know what I mean? Like,
originally,
nobody knows who John Carter
Princess
is.
of Mars. Princess of Mars would have been a much better title for it.
It sounds like a cool sci-fi kind of epic. John Carter sounds like a male western.
It sounds like a basketball movie with Samuel L. Jackson is like a tough coach, So,
all right. Well, let's go ahead and move into our featured review of the week.
Featured review of the week.
It's not a movie. We're going to try to review other things other than movies some on this podcast this year. It is Star Wars #1 from Marvel Comics, written by Jason Aaron. And we are going to talk about the book that has spawned how many variants, Jerry? 100 variants?
Oh, I believe it's between 60 and 68.
This comic has
it's near 100 variants.
Covers.
You're right, yeah, I understand.
And the comic that is the first since the 1990s.
One shoots a guy. There's one. No, just kidding.
Oh. This is the first comic since the 90s, since that major comic boom we just referenced, that has not only has shops ordered 1 million copies, this has sold 1 million copies. To put that in perspective, the hottest comic probably going now at mainstream is Scott Snyder's Batman. It sells anywhere from 30 to 50,000 copies in a week. This has sold 1 million.
This issue that you have here, is this like a first edition, first run print?
Yeah.
And we're touching it just willy-nilly?
Well, and I have a variant on the way. A sketch. Excuse him.
Sorry, guys. Ooh.
We have a Mike Dodado variant on the way, a sketch variant I have ordered from Midtown.
I have my Loot Crate #1 edition. I plan to read this. I plan to read it in trade.
Yeah.
But I started doing Loot Crate this past week, and I should be getting the exclusive edition.
Just don't get it. I just don't understand Loot Crate. I really just do not understand.
Tell them what Loot Crate is real quick.
Do you know what Loot Crate is?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Loot Crate and Geek Box.
Tell the listeners.
So Loot Crate is simply a company that sends you a box of stuff. You subscribe. I subscribed for like a 3-month period. It was $12, I think, for the month or so with like a $5 or $6 shipping. Got $3 off because I used the code Star Wars, and they send you a box of kind of like nerdy little trinkety stuff. And, I looked at some of the stuff in the past few months, and I liked most of it. I think every month they say you get about at least $40 worth of cool stuff. There's like Funko toys in there. There's little video game merchandise, T-shirts, comic books, novels. And I just looked at it and thought, well, that looks like some stuff I would like. So
it's so popular. I'm not knocking it. I know so many people that get these. I just don't. Like, why not just spend the money on just one thing you like, or a couple things?
Well, I like getting boxes of goofy stuff in the mail.
Okay,
I like getting mail in general.
That is I don't like having a bunch of
look at my house. I just like goofy stuff sitting all over the place.
I used to like getting mail till I got my own house, and I dread opening the mailbox with the bills now.
The bills and advertisements and coupons to places you never
That's why the packages... I got a Darth Malgus from Amazon. Showed up this morning, from Postal Service. Great.
Postal Service.
Yeah, they should brought it this morning.
That's crazy.
So,
all right, let's get into our feature review. Star Wars #1.
We need to get a train sound effect for when we go off the rails.
Yeah, we
insert it.
We really do.
All aboard!
This book, it takes place. Basically, they told Jason Aaron when he's writing this book, write a sequel to A New Hope that's not Empire Strikes Back. I want the in between.
It doesn't involve Luke and Leia sleeping in a tent together.
Yes,
because that's what the original
comic was.
Splinter of the Mind's Eye by Aladdin Foster has like lots of romance between Luke and Leia, and it's very uncomfortable to read now. But still,
we didn't know at the time.
We didn't know at the time.
Oh, how little we knew! So these comics, each issue is canon.
Correct? Yes, this is all canon, along with the books that are not legend books, which so far is A New Dawn and Tarkin.
and Darth Maul's son of Dathomir.
Yes, that's canon.
Yep.
That just came out. That was supposed to be a Clone Wars story.
It's very good. It's sitting on my table over there.
So no one in this comic, none of the main characters will die ever. We know.
Well, if it's a character that's brought into the book, main characters, sure.
Yeah, well, yeah, they can introduce a main character,
but they wouldn't have died in the old comics either. I mean, the old continuity.
I know.
Either.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. So
what I like about this book is that we have all the characters, all of our familiar friends. R2, 3PO, Vader shows up.
Never heard of any of those.
And we are spoiling this book,
and there's
obviously.
We're just going to
characters
say,
are in this book. Spoiler.
I mean, it's a first issue. There's not a lot of there's no plot revelations.
It's almost an action scene.
Yeah.
The whole thing is almost like an action scene, but
it seems like a good story. But there's a lot of fan service in here. But it's good fan service. Like they're using 4-LOM, as a protocol droid, like scanning. Han Solo at one point, and there's so many different, alien races in the background. It's just, I didn't know where to start.
Yeah.
I know where to start. Can I start somewhere? Can I start? Okay. I'm loving this book, and I'm going to jump through. Yeah, I'm going to jump through why. And actually, Andrew's pointing out one of the reasons I love this book.
Because of Leia's leg?
No.
That's what I was pointing at.
Okay. The costumes. It's so cool to see these characters running around. Han's in a standard thing. Han seems to only have one wardrobe, basically, at least until Empire Strikes Back. He's in his white shirt, his vest. He looks like Han Solo. Luke is in the brown pants, the black shirt, the yellow jacket.
From the honor guard
that he wears at the medal ceremony. Yeah. Leia has a very cool outfit on. In all honesty, I looked at this, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this Leia outfit. It's white. It's reminiscent of her A New Hope outfit.
It's not provocative either.
It's not at all, but it looks more...
it's not like Padme's.
It looks like it has a little bit more
True.
armor on it. It does kind of remind me of a mix between Leia's A New Hope robes, and Padme's outfit from Attack of the Clones. Yeah. But it looks like it could be serviceable in battle. It looks like it has some maybe some kind of armored on the not like metal armor, but some kind of a heavier fabric on the on the shoulders and stuff. It's just so cool to see these characters adventuring, and I love that period between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. Because honestly, to me, this is where, if you're a Star Wars fan, when I was a kid playing with Star Wars action figures, this is where all the adventure lies.
And this is where the relationships are built, too, the friendships.
This is where the friendships happen. This is where there's a little bit of the flirty, casual romance. This is where anything can happen with the adventures with the characters, because that can't really happen that much between Empire. Stuff had to be structured. But if you want Han and Leia and Luke to go and do whatever and just fight Imperials and get into, crazy adventures, this is where it happens, and I really like that they're exploring this, and it feels really natural. It's almost like you're reading it's not silly, but it's like you're reading some story that as a kid you might have imagined playing with your toys.
Yeah, it's very cinematic, too.
And when I was playing with my toys as a kid, which, I was mostly playing Star Wars figures in the mid-late 90s when Power of the Force 2 came out, because that's when I was about that age. I always used the Luke in the yellow jacket as my default Luke for other adventures. It's like my favorite Luke costume besides his Bespin outfit.
What I like is, like I was saying earlier, all the characters are here: Han, Luke, Leia, the whole gang, Chewie, Vader,
C-3PO.
But it doesn't feel pigeonholed, and there is a bit of fan service, but nothing feels forced in here.
Yeah.
No
pun intended.
It all flows very well. And what I like about this is it's a very tight story. We're not going on any tangents. The story revolves, I'm just going to say they go into an Imperial weapons factory and try to destroy some weapons. I'm not going to say any more than that about the story. But it's a big undertaking. And so far, I am blown away with how tight the canonicity has been kept between... Now, I haven't read A New Dawn or Tarkin. You have.
I've read A New Dawn, and I'm in the middle of Tarkin.
Okay. Well, I've read this comic.
Season 6 of the Clone Wars.
I've read this comic. I've watched the first 4 seasons of the Clone Wars, but I'm going to talk about newer stuff.
Yeah.
I've read this comic, and I watched all episodes of Rebels.
I'm like 2 or 3 in.
And how they're fitting this in, and nothing feels, I hate to say it again, forced into this.
No pun intended.
I'm blown away because this is such a major undertaking compared to the Marvel Studios where we had a TV show and a movie. We got comics. We got books. We got the movies coming out. The TV shows, everything. They really, and I know they did this to some extent when it was the expanded universe.
Yeah, they still kept their canon pretty tight, and they've been doing that since, the late 80s, or sorry, early 90s.
But for anybody who was worried that may be a problem in the Disney Marvel partnership with Star Wars and Lucasfilm, which they own it, not really a partnership, wow, they were wrong. Andrew, what did you think about this?
I liked it.
You liked it?
No, like I said, it definitely felt like an introduction to a bigger story, and you definitely have these fan things in, but again, like you said, they didn't feel forced in. It's like just, these team of characters that we love working together and just being on an adventure together. It's definitely a fun issue. Even if every issue from this point on just goes crazy and does stupid stuff, this issue itself is just really good, really fun.
Andrew,
really
how
cool.
did you experience this issue?
You read it to me.
I read it to him.
I'll pay Jerry to read my comics. His R2 sound effect is
his R2 is great.
Yeah, Chewbacca was not bad. 3PO is pretty good.
When characters are talking over the intercom, put your hand over your mouth so it sounds like they're somewhere else. That's what you got to do.
I do a good battle droid, but I don't think they're going to show up here.
Oh, let's do that. You do good, Jar Jar?
What's he user talking about, Andrew?
The art's great. The story's great.
Are there any Gungans in the expanding universe that are really cool? Did they ever make a bounty hunter Gungan that actually fans like or anything?
There's Gungans that show up in the Clone Wars that have some sensibility.
Do people like them?
Nobody dislikes them. I don't think the Gungans
I feel like
aren't
people
annoying.
pretty much hate all Gungans.
Jar Jar.
I don't think so.
Jar Jar is a better character in the Clone Wars than he is.
He is.
There's
in the Clone Wars?
There's a
tolerable.
There's a great season 6 episode
which I hadn't got to
that
yet.
It's Jar Jar and Mace Windu.
Wow.
Going on a mission together.
I gotta watch this.
It's crazy. It's funny though. It's really good, and it's like you're like, oh. Yeah.
Okay, 1 million copies sold. 200,000 pre-ordered already for issue 2. 200,000 pre-ordered for the Darth Vader #1 coming out next month. And I read on Comic Book Resources they were interviewing the editor-in-chief at Marvel Comics, Alex Alonso, and he was saying, we plan to keep this line tight. There's going to be the Star Wars, there's going to be the Darth Vader, the Princess Leia, and then a Kanan comic. But other than that,
Jarrus, he is the
Rebels.
Yeah, he's the main character of Rebels, kind of.
Okay,
it's kind of Rebels is a very ensemble cast.
And they said that's all we have planned in the near future. And for Marvel, who you've collected Marvel comics in the past 10 years, everything's wide and crossing over and all that, even more so than DC. Mm-hmm. If they really stick with that, and we're looking at quality over quantity, I think that's admirable because they have because they have a cash cow here.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Andrew.
So Rebels takes place before Episode 4, the TV show?
It's about 4 or 5 years before the Battle of
What about the comic? When is that going to take place?
That's going to be when Kanan is training to be a Jedi.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to be.
So, is this going to be after Episode 7 then? Or
no, that'd be after Episode 3. Oh, no, that'd be before Episode 3.
Well, I don't know if
this is a prequel to Rebels.
Yeah,
yes.
It's a prequel to Rebels.
That makes more sense. I was just wondering.
I don't know if it'd be after Episode 3. You'd figure
it'd have to be before because you haven't read New Dawn yet. So I don't know if you know how much you know about Kanan's backstory.
I don't know anything about Kanan's backstory.
So Kanan Jarrus was a Padawan to Depi Billaba, who was one of the Jedi from the prequel films.
Okay.
And he was, obviously when the Jedi are scattered because of Order 66, he was one of the ones who got away and survived. But he was not a Jedi Knight. He was still a Padawan. Yeah. So anything he's learned after that has been just his own... he
was one of those kid buckets on their head, just swinging the swords around.
He was older than younglings.
He was
a full Padawan.
He was probably about Anakin's age in Attack of the Clones. It's probably about. That's how.
That I could see that maybe a little younger.
Maybe like 18, 16,
Yeah.
17. I would say he's at least 16.
So
he's old enough to drive a land speeder.
So it's a prequel. I was wondering how they're gonna have the canon of the show. I know it's also supposed to be one canon, but I'm just picturing somebody writing a comic where it's like, well, I can't change anything about these movies. I can't, affect anything that's going to happen.
Which
in the
is
show.
what makes this impressive.
I like that this is a prequel, though. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely impressive.
Because
it's interesting sometimes. Sometimes it sucks to put constraints on the creative thing.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's interesting where it's like you have this creative thing, and it's like, okay, but these two movies that are established, you can't have anything, contradict those and make a story out of that. And so it'd be interesting.
That was the interesting thing with the expanded universe was that, I mean, there were a lot of books that took place. I mean, Shadows of the Empire took place, between Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, but they introduced a lot of new characters.
Yeah.
So you can you can have the main characters from the films interacting with, new characters that can die, that can have things changed. But of course, in the expanded universe, I mean, you had everything happening after Return of the Jedi as well, so you could have crazy stuff happening.
Are the Force Unleashed video games, are those still canon?
No
Okay.
longer.
All right.
I love you talk about characters, the characterization in these books. You read so many, maybe stuff from IDW where there's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, whatever. Sometimes you read stuff, and I'm not saying this is the case with that Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, to me, I think IDW's Ninja Turtles has the best. They nail the characterization.
Yeah, they do. I was just saying there's so many. There's Doctor Who comics. There's a ton of comics out there. And sometimes you end up reading comics based on established properties where you're like, this character would never say that, or this character would never do that. That's not the case here.
Yeah,
Han acts like Han and so forth.
Dialogue.
3PO acts like 3PO.
Yeah.
Chewie's dialogue is pretty on point.
It is very good.
And I love how
this is some of the best Wookiee dialogue since the holiday special.
Yeah.
At least.
I like how they utilize Chewie because he's a sniper in this. It's just so cool. I loved it. It really felt like I was watching. You know what it felt like? The opening scene of something like Raiders of the Lost Ark. Where it just opens up.
Quick
boom,
action. Yeah, I mean, it starts at media and res. I mean, the story is moving and you were there.
So the timetable, I think it was wise to hold this off and release it in January. Mm-hmm. This is the year of Star Wars.
Oh, yeah. Today is the 18th.
Yes.
11 months.
11 months.
I don't care. I'm still more excited right now for Age of Ultron, just because it's coming out first.
I'm more excited for Star Wars, but I am excited for Age of Ultron.
Star Wars #1, Jurassic World #2.
What?
Ultron #3.
Really? Jurassic World over that?
I'm just a huge Jurassic Park fan.
You're a huge Chris Pratt
Mine's
fan
the
right
same
now,
order, but...
It's really weird that everything I've really liked lately has had Chris Pratt.
What a coincidence!
Mine is that order, but Switch, Ultron, and Jurassic World.
Okay.
So I think that's most geeks' top 3
There's
here.
something else in there that you guys are forgetting. I don't remember what it is.
Mad Max.
Terminator Genesis.
Mad Max is pretty high for me,
I
though.
wanna
Mad
see
Max looks good.
Max, too.
There was 2 trailers that came out right before Star Wars. They were getting a lot of
Jurassic
buzz.
World.
Jurassic World was one of them.
I can't remember. Mad Max came
Yeah, maybe
out.
it was. Maybe
Mad
it was.
Max.
Maybe I'm thinking of Terminator though. But I'm really excited
Genesis.
for it.
Genesis.
All right, we're going to wrap this up because the NFC
Genesis.
Championship game's about to come on.
I just want to
Go
point out.
team.
I just want to point out some cool Easter eggs in here. It's really cool with whatever the plot they're doing. Leia and Luke are disguised in the same palace guard disguises that Lando uses in Return of the Jedi. That's really cool. Like I said, 4-LOM is working for the Empire in a capacity. Kind of a cool Easter egg. R2 does some stuff that is reminiscent of things that he did.
Trilogy?
Yeah, during the prequels.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing crazy, just really neat stuff. Seeing kind of that feisty, side of R2.
R2-D2.
The main characters in Star Wars, I don't know what it is, but like a lot of toy companies have always had trouble capturing their likeness.
Yes.
I think Marvel did a pretty good job here capturing their likeness. I mean, Leia really looks... she looks like Carrie Fisher at that.
And Han looks better than anything Hot Toys did.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
it's pretty good Harrison Ford likeness.
And Luke, too, because, I mean, I picture Luke always in kind of those robes as being his...
And he doesn't have the scars here.
Doesn't have the scars yet, because he hadn't got them yet. Yeah,
from the Wampa. But that was because the car wreck.
Mark Hamill was in a serious car accident. you see some prequel aliens mixed in with some original trilogy
What's
aliens.
the prequel aliens? What went out?
There's a Torgruda, which is the same race as Shaak Ti and Ahsoka Tano.
Yeah.
You've got some Zabrak, Darth Maul's race.
Zabrak.
Okay.
I always say Zabrak.
Zabrak. You got Bith and the Thorian, though, which are original trilogy
yeah.
aliens. You got some
A Thorian was called Hammerhead at first.
Yeah,
right? When the toy
Hammerhead
arm
was the name Kenner gave to the original Momhal Nodden figure, but they didn't have the name Momhal Nodden until the.
That's the a Thorian from the Cantina.
So that's a nod to those race, huh?
Yeah. I was trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, there's a pretty cool, kind of a funny scene where Han tells Chewie not to shoot at Vader, which is funny because in Empire Strikes Back, when Han shoots at Vader, that's when he deflects the blast. And it's funny telling Han telling someone not to shoot first because despite losing his head, Han always shoots first anytime he can. That's kind of in his character.
There's also a preview for Darth Vader #1, which sees Vader visiting Jabba's palace. Which, if you're not sold, come on. All right, let's wrap this up. Andrew Stokes, what would you rate this comic?
Oh, goodness, I don't know. I mean,
it's harder rating a single issue.
A first issue and a single issue is hard.
Yeah, this is the first in the arc. I'm not sure I want to rate it until there's
Can I say that this art here of for Princess Leia #1,
Terry Dotson.
Oh my gosh, that is gorgeous. I mean, the art is gorgeous. Leia looks awesome. That outfit is super cool.
Han-esque looking.
It kind of reminds me of some of the old Ralph McQuarrie art, concept art of what the character kind of became.
I'm going to go ahead and rate epic. Okay. Epic. I'm rating it off. This is if this was a movie and this was the opening scene, this would be the epic scene of the movie. Yeah. I say epic. What do you say, Jerry? I know it's hard to rate a single issue.
I would probably go at this point with a grade and a half. Nothing earth-shattering happens here, but it is cool. There's some. I mean, everything else is just so well done.
They accomplished what they set out to do.
If the rest of this first story arc it can match the quality of this and basically everything it does, then the whole first story arc is going to be epic.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap this up. You can find all of our stuff at thepicreview.com. You can find me on Twitter at @TheRealBradBell. You can now find me on Instagram at @TheRealBradBell. I got rid of the Epic Reviews Twitter feed, so just use my...
What?
It's still out there, but just use my Twitter feed
Lance
as the Epic Review.
Hendrickson tweeted us one time, and we got rid of that?
Now that means nothing.
It's still there.
The man is the patron saint of the Epic
Jerry,
Review.
we can find you at...
Action Figure Barbecue. Next week or two, I'll be reviewing the rest of the Jakks Pacific World of Nintendo line. Bowser, Donkey Kong, and Link. I'll be reviewing all of the first series of Warpo Toys Legends of Cthulhu figures, and I'll also be reviewing DC Collectibles Batgirl figure from the New 52.
And Jerry will still from time to time be on the Epic Review. Yeah. He's not left the
Prior
site.
to Toy Fair this year, I'll be posting all of my best of 2014 posts.
And Andrew Stokes, we can find you where?
You can follow me on Twitter at CryesJuggernaut. I was tweeting things out, but then I'm not again because it's Twitter and I have things to do.
All right.
Tell Andrew you like him. He's insecure.
Yeah. You can follow my insecurity at Andrew's Insecure. And then you can also find me on the Epic Review where you can read my article, The Top 10 Most Anticipated Video Games of 2013, I believe it was. Yeah. So, really looking forward to that Pokemon X and Y.
All right, real quick before we go, Andrew.
Yeah.
Today's picks for Championship Sunday: Seahawks, Packers,
Seahawks definitely have it. Aaron Rodgers is injured. They're playing in Seattle. Some rainy weather. I mean, I like Green Bay too. If they can win that straight, I just don't see it happening. I don't see them getting past Seahawks.
Patriots, Colts, AFC.
In Foxborough, I mean, it's Belichick, it's Brady. I really don't see the Colts getting past them, but I mean, I think people are sleeping on Andrew Luck and this Colts team. I think despite maybe Peyton being more injured than we thought, those Colts really, that they play ball, and I mean, if they surprise them, then so be it. But I think it's Seahawks, Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Who's winning the Super Bowl?
Oh God, I hope
Probably our
Seahawks.
last podcast before the Super Bowl.
I hope the Seahawks.
All right, for me,
What about you?
I'm on with Seattle.
Okay.
They're unbeatable in CenturyLink Field in the
If
playoffs.
the Panthers can't do it, nobody can.
They have the best defense, the Legion of Boom, since the 2000 Ravens. Aaron Rodgers is hurt, so Seahawks. Andrew Luck, his time is coming, not this year. All right, I'd say Brady versus Russell, and I'll go with the Seahawks.
I hope so.
In the Super Bowl 49.
All right.
So that's it for this week's episode, this month's episode. We'll hopefully be back in February with the 36th episode of the Epic Review.
Where we'll be discussing, I have no idea.
Of the Epic Review signature podcast, the Confirmed Epic Podcast. Remember, check us out at theepicreview.com. And from the Hollywood foothills of North Carolina, we are out.